All right, thank you very much. All that means, I just couldn't keep a job. That's all that means. I went all over the country, coming back into Mount Rushmore. Oh, I don't know, 5, 6 years ago. 9 years ago now was our 26th move. So I raised my children in the national parks, which we live in national parks. Or at least we used to live in national parks, which was America. And so it's always an honor to be here, especially an honor to be here back in my home state of North Dakota. I've been out of the reservation now for many years, and leaving when I was a freshman in high school. But again, never losing the feel. I was going back and visiting the parents. I was going back and visiting my clan, relatives, and so forth. I know I got a lot of relatives in this room, so I really want to say hi. A lot of dignitaries here. I don't want to name all you because it'll take me all night. And as everybody in this room, as far as I'm concerned, I want to thank especially the staff and the folks at the first college I attended, which was then Mary College, and they gave me a very good background and a base, and I believe a basis for where I went and what I did, at least in a good way. And if I didn't do something good, then I blame on another college. But Mary College did great. And so I want to also, for me, it's always an extreme honor and a pleasure to be at the same podium with our chairman, Tex Hall, and also with Dr. Gipp. I think those two gentlemen, as you know, are doing a lot for this country, and I'm very proud of the fact also that Tex and I came out of the same boarding school, a place called New England St. Mary's in North Dakota, as some of you know. We have a sister here from New England, by the way. So I won't tell my joke about New England that says that now St. Mary's is now a woman's prison. It was a prison when we were there too, and they had nuns. They had guns. I know they did. No. But again, it was always good to see leaders come out of small schools, of reservations that maybe people never heard about, and so that's always an honor to be here. I'd like to also say my congratulations and good to hear Miss Indian Nations, Miss Harper Cooper, another leader and the inspiration for Indian as well as non-Indian people, especially for our children. I think if they see the leadership like this, we can know that we can do anything. It's also great to see, like I said, family here, and I'll be amiss if I don't introduce my wife, my beautiful lady. I met at Mary College, actually. I wasn't studying at that time, guys. But that's Mary Kay. She's from New Rockford, North Dakota. Those of you from North Dakota here. Again, I want to thank everybody who's here for the supporting the scholarships and supporting this very great program that started at United Tribes, especially with Dr. Gipp. As you know, you heard tonight from our leaders, and I want to believe that every one of you in this room are leaders as well, and as well as your children, and hopefully your grandchildren can be. I started out my leadership almost like what Chairman Hall in the same way, because we grew up actually about 2 miles apart or 3 miles apart as the horses go. And I can remember sitting in our log house with the old fellers, if you want to call them, my mom and my dad. We had we used to get a lot of visitors because my dad was a tribal judge. And so they used to always come and sit in my living room, which was my bedroom, by the way. And so I had no place to go hide, so I had to sit there and listen. And that's probably one of the best things I ever did, because I got to understand how our people lived and how they succeeded in the past. I'm not talking just about the Mandan, Hazarika, I'm talking about the Indian nations of North America. They always say that we failed. We didn't fail. We're still alive. We still have our culture. We've been through a lot as far as even being suppressed in many ways. I study a lot of culture, as Tex said. I'm an avid reader. I study even the boys on a hill when I was at Rushmore. I love studying those presidents. And speaking about you, by the way, if you guys ever been up there, if you go there again, Black Hills is turning gold with the killing of the bugs. The Black Hills right now, when I left there, they said about 90% of the trees were going to be dead, which means fires. I tell that story to tell this story. I prayed for a fire. Because when I wanted to leave Mount Rushmore, I wanted to have those boys brown, not white. When I first started out with the Park Service, I had no idea what I was doing. Coming out of Mandaree, I love my home reservation, love my people. And like a lot of our folks, I think they saw the need for further education. They also saw the need not only for an academic education, but to make sure that you kept your culture. You understood who you were, and you understood what we came through. A lot of our tribes, every one of our tribes in North America did something good. They were all involved in some sort of commerce. They were all involved in free nations, if you will, at one point in time in our histories. And as you can see in today's world, with all the talk about the sequestrians, talk about the new movement with oil and gas in our country, maybe other countries as well, other parts of the states, there is a need for that leadership. Not only from an academic standpoint, but from a cultural standpoint as well. There is a need to understand where we've been. There is a need to understand how different organizations, if you will, or different entities actually try to change us. And when they try to change us, they start leaving things out. And if it wasn't for our leaders, for our elders, for the ones who saw into the future, if it wasn't for them, they would have succeeded. Our elders, our leaders taught us how to be strong. And that's one thing I remember all the time for the future leaders. I tell kids this all the time, and my father and some of my clan grandparents would tell me the same thing. They would say there's going to be times that you're going to fall. And what it takes maybe a second or maybe half an hour, even an hour to get up. But you got to get up. But one thing that we're learning once again, I believe, is solidarity among each other. Like I say here tonight. It doesn't take one to help you up, it takes a group to help you up. It takes a group to succeed. As many times in my career throughout the United States and when I worked up in Alaska, that I would go back to those times in the kitchen with my mom, dad, old guys sitting around a table telling stories and telling us how to be strong and not give up. If you fall down, get up and do it again. There was times when they stressed education from both sides. And they always stressed, especially my parents. My parents didn't finish high school, maybe like a lot of our parents did, but they were the smartest people in the world as far as I was concerned. Just like the rest of our elders were the smartest people in the world. They were the survivors. They were the ones that didn't have that opportunity maybe in those days to get those scholarships. They were the ones that didn't have the opportunity. In fact, they were probably sent away, as they were sent away to boarding schools long, long ways away. And so they came through all of that with the understanding of traditional leadership. And nowadays we need to go with that and contemporary leadership as well. And many times I worked, there was a lot of things that I was up against. And I can remember without that leadership coming from the elders, I wouldn't have made it. Later on in my career, when I finally got to be the superintendent at Little Bighorn Battlefield, I can remember using Custer's words a lot in my career, which was, what the heck? Anyway, and so there was a lot of times that I had to look and understand what my parents were saying to me. There was many, many times when people would come up to me and said, you can't do that. And the answer to them is, watch me. And so to me, the leadership comes from all of us. Yes, we're giving leadership to individuals, but that just doesn't touch one individual. We have to understand that you're giving to these scholarships and to these foundations and so forth from United Tribes. That what we give doesn't just touch one person. It touches many, many, many people. It touches the elders. It touches our youth. And I want to say it even touches those that are not yet born. Because what we have to do collectively, I don't care what we are, who we are, we need to come together more and more and more, first of all, as human beings, as a nation, as cultures, to get rid of some of the things that we're up against, because that's what we're up against. There's still racism in this world. There's still prejudice in this world, and on every side of the damn fence, not just one side. And the only way to get rid of that is through learning, is through education, is through cultural awareness, to understand each other. And I believe we're doing it. When I see leaders like Chairman Hall, when I see leaders like Dr. Gipp, they affect everybody. They affect everybody. Because we can start telling our young kids, man, you got to be like them. You got to do this. And education is so important. I didn't get that for a long time. I probably didn't get that after I graduated from college. How important that was. Because again, when we're in front of people, I know Chairman Hall and all these folks that testify, for example, and give programs like that are extremely good. At one time, folks, our Indian people were the best speakers in the world. You talk about trade. You talk about those tribes that had lived along this river called the Missouri River, Mahatahe and Mandan. They had to not only talk among themselves, they had not only talk among the other trading tribes that came in, but they had to start dealing with the French, with the Spanish, with the American Fur Company, with the Hudson Bay Company. And then you start getting people like the explorers, Lavendres and Lewis and Clark and George Catlin, Bodmer, and on and on and on and on and on. We couldn't do work if we didn't know how to speak. We couldn't do work if we didn't know how to trade. We couldn't do work if we were not intelligent. And we were the best, we being the Indian people of this nation. And somehow for a little bit in our history, it seems, we kind of take a step back. We kind of take a step back. There were some factors involved. Force this and force that. You got to go here. You got to change your name. You got to eat this commodities, blah, 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 blah. But you know what? Through that leadership, we made it. We're not quite there yet. We still got diabetes in our places, but we're getting there. And so the leaders have to come out now have more to understand than we ever have in the past. And so, like I said, these leaders will affect everybody. They'll affect the younger sisters and brothers or their nieces and nephews. They'll see that. They'll be a role model. And you folks that are giving, again, understand that you're not giving to an individual. Understand that you're giving to America. You're giving to the future. I can see one of these days that we will have a lot more people in a lot more positions. Maybe in Congress, in Senate. Then we can start doing those roads, Tex. There is possibilities, and the possibilities are endless. That's one thing I learned from the old folks, I think, and I still remember that today. It's possibilities. Like I said before, when somebody told me that I couldn't do things, for example, creating and establishing an American Indian program at a traditionally non-Indian site like Mount Rushmore, or at Little Bighorn Battlefield, even to the point where people got angry that we brought the tribes in to start talking about how we lived and how we died for our country and how we lived for our country. So when I started talking about that there and started bringing people in, it got to the point where, again, not only did they say, you can't do that. When I left that place, I left it with 7 official death threats to myself and my family. And so again, if it wasn't for leadership, if it wasn't for the leaders that I knew, if it wasn't for the leaders that supported me, I probably would have walked out on that. I probably would have said, you won, folks. But I didn't. Because every time you get there, I go back to the log house. I go back to our table. I go back to those old leaders that were sitting around our house, or at our table, telling stories. Not being anything special in their own eyes, but to me they were the best. Talking about the trade networks, talking about warfare, talking about being a warrior, talking about being a mother, talking about being a grandmother, and that was leadership. So again, I want to thank you. And I want to encourage you not only to keep giving, but start talking about it as well to your friends, to your neighbors. Because what you're doing is not only making United Tribes, obviously, helping them out. What you're doing is making our world better. You're making America better. And what we have to do continually, because we're evolving, all of us, is we have to understand. We have to teach our kids in a good way that they shouldn't listen to the word, you can't do it. They need to listen to the words, yes, you can. It might be a little bit tough, but we're behind you, or we're beside you, or we're in front of you, helping you out. So like everybody else, I thank you for this support. Because one of these days, maybe you'll look up and you'll see the future. The resulting of some of that support you gave, the future will be in Congress, in the White House, on tribal chairmen, tribal councils. And my dream is to one day really be a true sovereign nations across this world. And I think we're getting there. It takes education. It takes support. And maybe firstly, which is not a correct word, I know. Didn't you teach English? I think I didn't miss your class. Anyway, the first thing is I'm a real strong believer in prayer. I don't care if it's Catholic prayer, I don't care wherever it's at, it's prayer. That's what helps us go. That's what helps us. I don't care if I tell kids all the time, when you get up in the morning, say a prayer. It doesn't have to be memorized. It shouldn't be memorized. That's how those old guys lasted. They prayed all the time, it seems like. And so again, last thing is let's keep that in our daily hearts as people who support this. Keep that thinking about our young who are coming into this world that's pretty damn rough. And one of these days, you'll continue to see, and maybe see more leaders coming out of the Indian country, when I know they will. I know they will. So again, I want to thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure to be back in North Dakota again. I miss my home. If there's a ranch for sale, let me know. Anyway, thank you very much.